um, um, weeds. Weeds are a big source of pollen. So in the early spring, when the trees begin to put out their little pollen, and before their leaves come out, they are a big source of allergic symptoms. And in the fall, when certain ragweed becomes more prolific, and tumbleweed, these lead to symptoms. Also, insects in the home like dust mites. We'll talk a lot more about dust mites, cockroaches, and certain kinds of ladybugs, which I will not get into in this talk. Animals lead to allergies from their saliva. Proteins in their saliva can make us really react. Their fur, their feather, and their skin. And then the mold that sometimes lingering and hiding away in our home, that's making us sick and we don't realize it. So the first step is to identify the allergen. What is causing the problem in you? Which one of these things are the allergen? Well, sometimes you can identify based on when your symptoms happen. So if, like clockwork, every time the trees start to put out their little pollen, pollen, that's when you start to sneeze and get itchy. Well, maybe yours is seasonal. If it's when you go to your friend's house and they have that cat and you just can't stop sneezing, well, then maybe it's the animals that your issue is. And some people have these symptoms all year round. Maybe something in your house, maybe some mold that you haven't identified that's causing the problem. So the first step in treating allergic rhinitis or these runny nose, itchy type symptoms is to, after you've identified the allergen, you want to reduce exposure. Try to not be around that irritant so much. The common ones that are inside our house are the dust mites or animals. Cat and dog are a big source of allergies. With indoor allergens, sometimes after you get rid of the problem, you've done everything you can to decrease or eliminate that trigger. It takes a while for you to stop having symptoms. So let's say you finally gave in and you had to remove your pet, your beloved pet, but your allergies were just driving you nuts. You may not see a response right away. It may take half a year before all the symptoms go away. And we need to be mindful of that so you don't get discouraged when trying to figure out what's the problem here. And if despite all your best efforts, you still have a reaction, then an allergist can be very helpful to identify what your trigger is. They'll do various tests, whether it be blood tests or to see what it is that your trigger is, and then you can be more focused in trying to reduce your exposure. Many times, your home is the primary source of your allergen. So you need to reduce the exposure, right? We're clear on that. You need to reduce the exposure, and your home can be the primary source. It's especially important to reduce exposure triggers in the bedroom because you spend most of your time in your bedroom. So try to keep a particular awareness of what is in your bedroom that could be triggering these really annoying symptoms. And even though you are careful about, trying to decrease the irritant in your bedroom, you have to also go through your entire house to make sure that every room is free of the allergen. So let's talk more in detail now. Dust mites. Now, many people are not familiar with dust mites. It's just like this, bizarre term that we hear, but we don't know what they are. Well, they are microscopic insects. What does that mean? You can't see them. Some people say, oh, I see dust mites on my pillow. No, they are microscopic. We are not able to see them with the naked eye, but we know where they like to live. They like to live in warm, moist areas. So in your bedding, on your pillowcase, on your mattress, in your carpets, your sofa is where they like to take up residence. And they like it when it's humid. So if you have a home that's humid or the environment is humid, the dust mites flourish. Dust mites are not harmful to humans. You don't have to be afraid of them. I mean, they look ugly. That's a picture of a dust mite there. They're very, unsightly, but they're not harmful. They don't cause pain. They don't bite you and leave big welts. But the major issue with dust mites is that they lead to allergies. And you just feel miserable. Your eyes are itchy, your nose is runny. And that's the biggest problem with these insects. I have here just a reminder that they don't like dry climates. They don't like a dry area. So you don't find them much in the southwestern part of the states, but in a humid area, you want to think of dust mites as a potential trigger to your allergies. So how do you reduce your exposure to these annoying insects? Well, you want to try to kind of cover your pillows, cover your mattress, your box spring in fabric that dust mites can't permeate. They can't get through. And these are special types of fabric where it's woven so tightly that the dust mites can't penetrate easily. And those are special kinds of fabric you can buy to protect your pillows and your mattresses. When it comes to children, please be careful not to do too many homemade experimental wrappings. For example, wrapping the pillowcase and the mattress in plastic and then taping it down with duct tape. Why do I say that? Because these things can come apart. Sometimes you don't know how it happens, but the kid can get all wrapped up in the plastic, and we know that's a problem because it can lead to suffocation. So don't wrap your kids' mattresses and pillows in your own plastic. Just get proper fabric that's well made to prevent dust mite infestation, and that would be much safer. Here's a picture of what that might look like. You want a tightly woven fabric with a pore size of 6 microns or less. Those have been shown to decrease mites and cat allergens from coming into your pillowcase and your beds. Regular fabric with a micron size of 2 will still permit airflow and dust mites. So just to give you some tips of what you might want to look for and what I might want to look for, because trust me, I am learning along with you as we talk about these things. So I'm going to look for that myself. Now, also, you can decrease mites on your pillowcases and on your bed by washing your blankets and bedding every week in warm water with detergent. Right? So weekly washing goes a far way. And you want to dry these fabrics in an electric dryer on your hot setting, your hottest setting. Now, don't hang your bedding out on the line outside if you have allergic symptoms, because you will be catching a lot more pollen and bring it inside the house, and now you have 2 things to deal with. So if you have allergies, you don't want to be hanging your bedding outside, unfortunately. I know it sounds nice and natural, the fresh, the sunshine, the air, but it may worsen allergies if you have pollen as an issue in your case, only if that's an issue for you. Also, you want to use a vacuum with a HEPA filter. Remember that dust mites like to live in sofas and in your carpet. So you need to vacuum your carpet with a HEPA filter. What's HEPA? Well, it's a high efficiency particle air filter. So it can catch certain mites and dust and animal dander much better than a regular filter. Okay, so you want to consider these things when you're decreasing your mite population. Also, keeping the humidity low in your home. Below 50% would be ideal. You can use a dehumidifier, which I find I have to use one right around late spring, early summer. It tends to get more humid in my home. So a dehumidifier is very helpful for me. If you want to know how humid your house is, you can actually get a humidity monitor at any hardware store, and they're supposedly not too expensive. I've never tried one before, but if you have an issue with too much humidity, you may want to invest in one. I like this one here because it applies to so many areas of life. We want to decrease clutter. Decreasing clutter around the house goes a far way when it comes to decreasing your mite population. And also when it just comes to organization, peace of mind, and less stress. If you have a cluttered home, you could be suffering from many things just because of the clutter. One of them is increased mites. Decreasing clutter, decrease carpet. If everybody in the house is sneezing and sniffling, carpet all throughout the house may not be ideal. Also, decreasing too many drapes, or at least cleaning them often. And this was interesting to me. I didn't even know about this. Horizontal blinds apparently leads to more dust buildup and places for mites to live, as opposed to vertical blinds, because you can clean the just one layer of blind can be cleaned easier than the horizontal blinds. So that's a recommendation to avoid horizontal blinds and maybe just get a roller type shade or washable vinyl. Just tips that you can think about when you're suffering with different kinds of allergies. And when it comes to our kids, we don't want to have their bed filled with a whole bunch of stuffed toys. More surface area for dust mites to grow. So minimize the clutter, minimize the stuffed toys in your kid's bed, and wash bedding often and change the sheets every week. All right, so that's for the dust mites. Now, what about animals? Animals can lead to allergies. They're dead skin cells or scales. It sheds, it sloughs off. And these are sources of allergies in humans. Now, any breed of dog or cat can lead to allergies. In cats, however, surprisingly, it's the protein in their saliva that we can be allergic to. And also their urine, the proteins in their urine and from their skin glands. Now, why do I even bother to tell you this? Because many times we think it's just their fur, just their hair that we're allergic to. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's their spit that's making us sniffle and sneeze and be itchy. So we need to be mindful of this and understand what our triggers are. Other animals like rodents, birds, and ferrets can also cause allergies in humans. So if you're allergic to your pet, what are you going to do? Well, the most effective option is to remove the pet from the home. And that can be so sad because folks get very attached to their pets. I mean, pets are wonderful. They're so lovable, so cute. But if you are sick and not thriving, that's an option you really have to strongly consider. If the pet is in the home and you can't get rid of it, you at least want to limit your pet to certain areas of the home. Even though I have to let you know that limiting your pet to just, say, the basement or just the living room doesn't solve the problem, because their little protein particles from their saliva and their hair travels on your clothes, travels on your skin, gets through the air vents in the house so that all the rooms get their allergic protein, and you will still suffer just because your pet is in the house. Even after your cat has been removed or your dog has been removed, remember I said before, it can take several months for your symptoms to get better, because their particles remain in the home for a very long time. And let's say you just can't get rid of your beautiful, wonderful pet, you just can't do it, then at least follow certain precautions and certain guidelines of vacuuming very, very often with a HEPA filter. This can help to reduce the dander and the animal protein throughout the house and can help to reduce your symptoms somewhat. Now, what about rodents? Mice and rats have proteins in their urine as well that can cause allergies. And this is something that, I have had to deal with because I am in a country setting. And one thing with living in the country is you live with all kinds of animals in the country that you would never imagine. Now, I've been in a country setting for about 7 years now. And one thing that we've had to contend with is something called field mice. This little guy right here. There are tons of them throughout the woods, and they like to sneak inside the house. And so we have to be so vigilant about these field mice, trying to get them outside the house because they are part of country living, unfortunately. And so things that you have to do to decrease them, well, certainly keeping food and trash in covered containers because they're really trying to get to your food. Cleaning up food scraps from the floor and the countertops will help to minimize them in your house, and sealing up cracks in walls, doors, and floors. These little things, they can literally flatten themselves and like creep under any opening that you have. So you have to be very vigilant with these field mice because they can lead to a lot of sneezing and sniffling. What about cockroaches? Well, if you're in the city, that's an issue you have to struggle with because cockroaches are prolific in city areas. When I used to live in Brooklyn, New York, oh my goodness, in the high-rise apartments, oh, what a fight trying to get rid of cockroaches. And this is a very common issue with children's asthma. Practicing in Brooklyn, New York, many times one of the biggest allergens for those little children coming in with asthma flares was the cockroaches in the apartments that these children live in. So as parents, we have to be so vigilant with decreasing and eliminating cockroaches in our apartments, especially in the cities, because they lead to a lot of asthma and a lot of allergies. How can you decrease cockroaches in your apartment? Well, using multiple traps for these cockroaches can be useful. Removing garbage and food waste from the home. Don't let garbage sit in your house. When I used to have a garbage can, a big garbage can, where I would put we would put food scraps in throughout the day. And it takes days to fill that garbage, right? So the garbage would kind of hang around in the house until the garbage bag was full. And then I went to a friend's house and I noticed that she was putting her garbage in a little tiny bag and taking it out every single day. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And it dawned on me, that's a better approach because the more you keep garbage in your house, the more you attract rodents and critters and insects and bugs. So now I've ditched the big garbage can. And now we have a little tiny garbage in the kitchen. It gets full really fast, but guess what? Every evening, out it goes. The garbage should come out of the house every single evening. It really helps to decrease rodents and critters. Also, washing your dishes up every evening, cleaning your utensils is very helpful to decrease rodents. Removing the cockroach debris quickly and eliminating standing water or leaking faucets can help. And again, we come back to humidity. If you have a humid home, insects and bugs kind of like that. So you want to decrease humidity, get a dehumidifier, and even an air conditioner can be helpful. And if your problem is really, really bad, then you may have to consult an exterminator. Even though I'm one that's really leery of toxic poisons and sprays, I'm very leery about that because sometimes those sprays can harm us as much as they harm the bugs. But do whatever you can to decrease your cockroach infestation because it will help with your allergies a lot. Now, this one we don't often think about, right? Mold. Nobody thinks of mold when they think of allergies, but a lot of us are sniffling and sneezing and itching because there's mold in the house. Mold thrives in damp environments. Again, back to that dampness, that humidity. We need to keep our homes dry, decrease humidity. Maybe I need to go get me a humidity monitor because I'm realizing now how important it is to not have a humid home. But we want to have eliminate dry dampness. We want to eliminate dampness in our homes. That's so important. So what areas tend to be very damp that can lead to mold growth? Well, the refrigerator drip trays. We don't think about that. Shower stalls, of course, bathrooms, leaky sinks, basements. All these areas tend to be damp. We can't ignore it. We gotta stay on top of it. That's where mold likes to grow. Mold spores come from outside and into the house, and they set up shop and they make allergies worse. So how do you reduce mold in your home? Well, it's important to keep the humidity low. You want to avoid standing water. Any areas of water collection, get rid of it. Unfortunately, house plants can be a problem when you have mold and allergies. So you really want to be careful. Check your plants properly. Check the soil that the plants are in. Remember, house plants can be very healthy. The leaves, the stems help to purify the air that you breathe. But check your soil. You don't want to have mold growing in the soil of your plant, so be very careful with that. Fix leaky plumbing. Also, if your drain is not working well, that should not be a problem for long. Get it fixed. You don't want to have carpet in your bathroom. That's not the place to have carpet. We don't want too much rug all over the bathroom, because if they get very moist and we don't wash them often, mold can develop. An exhaust fan is useful in the bathroom, especially after showering, because it decreases the dampness. And again, we want the humidity less than 50% in our home to keep the mold down. What else can we do? We want to clean our indoor garbage pails regularly. We don't always think about these things, but the garbage pail, things drop in there, liquid, food particles, and it keeps moist and things grow. An electric dehumidifier can be used to keep the basements not so moist. And listen to this one. Old books, newspapers, all clothing that we're not using, we need to get rid of it. Things build up in these old books and newspapers, not just the mold, but the dust mites too. So it all comes together when we're trying to live a healthier, more productive life. Things like decreasing clutter, being organized, they all come together for us to be truly helpful. So we don't want things just lying around in the house for years and years. If you're not using it, ditch it, get rid of it, and keep your area nice and open. Breeze can come through, and bugs and insects and mold won't build up. If you have water damaged carpets or water damaged ceiling boards, you have to replace those, because it's just too hard to get rid of mold. You can clean and clean all you want, but it's very difficult to remove mold from that situation. So those have to be replaced or removed. And in the bathroom, that's an area we have to really keep a close eye on. Mold likes to live on soap film that is around tiles, grout, and sinks. So we want to clean those areas very well, and at least once a month, use some diluted bleach to really scrub that area well. Being in the country area, I have a septic tank. So when we don't have regular, what do you call it? We don't have regular city sewage. We have a septic tank for our sewage. So we can't use a lot of bleach. But if you dilute your bleach, put just maybe 1 ounce in a quart of water, just not on a regular basis. We don't use bleach every day in our house. We will damage the septic tank, the filters. But you can use a little bit of bleach on not a frequent basis for cleaning. It can be handy sometimes. So we want to clean areas very well in the bathroom with some bleach to decrease mold. All right, so I went over a lot and I didn't even finish talking about other allergens like outdoor pollen, which affects a lot of people. But I'm going to stop here. And then when we come back together next Wednesday, we'll review these briefly and then talk about outdoor pollen and what can you do naturally to fight seasonal allergies from pollen outside, okay? So don't forget, it's not just pollen that causes allergies. It's mold, insects, animals, and pollen, 4 categories. You got to identify which one is really your trigger and then address it when you discover it, okay? So we'll stop there for now, and I look forward to getting together again next week,
So,
Wednesday.
Doc, I noticed you mentioned one thing. Um, Make sure I can hear myself here. Looks like we might be losing volume. Uh, yeah, you mentioned ladybugs. Now I notice in Connecticut, certain times of the year, I see ladybugs all over my house, and I wonder where do they come from? You know, is that do, do other people have that problem? Just see ladybugs certain times of the year all over their homes. I don't know how they get in the house. I just see them everywhere
Yeah, I
sometimes.
know, I know. Ladybugs are so beautiful. And yes, we have them too. Certain time of the year, they just come and they just, boo, they're everywhere. I've noticed that here, certain insects and animals, they
Hmm.
come at their own time of year and they just like take over and they disappear. And we have ladybugs too. And since you mentioned that, I wasn't going to talk about ladybugs because I didn't didn't realize that it may be a concern for some, but you're right, they are here. So we have to see, are the kinds that we have here
Hmm.
possibly causing allergy in individuals? So I'll add that to my talk for next Wednesday, ladybugs and how they can be a source of allergen and that itchy, watery, annoying sensation you get during when you have allergic rhinitis. So I'll talk about that more next week, but I have them too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Doc. And folks, you've been watching The Doctor and the Preacher, and we appreciate you joining us. Remember that we'll be on this evening at 6 p.m. with our prayer and praise service. You don't want to miss that. And I'll be back tomorrow morning, and Pastor Tom will join me. And so we look forward to seeing you. We're going to say a word of prayer, and then we're going to let you go. Father, thank you so much for Dr. Kathy. Thank you for her wisdom which she shared with us today. Lord, I pray that you help us to order our lives so that we can reduce these allergies in our lives. Thank you for loving us. Keep us faithful now, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, Pastor. No problem. All right, thank you so much. All right, bye.